Okay, guys. Probabilities of disjoint and overlapping events, and that's really a lot of what we do today is vocabulary. I need to tell you a couple of things. I need to tell you what disjoint means, okay, and I'll talk about it in a second. I need to tell you what overlapping events are. They're different, and then I also need to tell you what complementary events are. Okay. Now, mutually exclusive. This thing means the same thing as disjoint. Okay, so we'll talk about that in just a second. So there are really three ideas that we need to get in our head. Okay, now once we do that, we've got a couple of formulas, and I'll explain that to you in just a minute, that helps us find those probabilities. But we need to talk about what these are first. Okay, now the first thing, a disjoint event or disjoint events are events that have no common outcomes. So for instance, if I'm rolling a number cube or a die, right? Dice is plural. One of them is a die. All right, like the die is cast. Okay, so you throw a number cube, you throw a die, and there are two events that we could think about. One would be to roll a 3, okay? That's one event. Or roll an even number. Okay, now those are two different things, and they have no outcome in common. If I roll a 3, it's not an even number. If I roll an even number, it's not a 3. They have no outcomes that are in common. All right, so those things are called disjoint events. I think you've got the idea of disjoint events down, but I want you to remember too that mutually exclusive means the same thing. Well, mutually exclusive means the same thing as disjoint. They're used synonymously. Okay. Now, in the next one that I want to talk about, let's talk about overlapping events. Now, an example of overlapping events would be to roll a 3 or roll an odd number. Okay? Now, if I roll a 3, I have rolled an odd number. Do you see how they overlap there? But if I roll an odd number, it's not necessarily a 3. It could be a 1 or a 5. Okay? So they overlap, but they're not the same. Okay? They have a spot where they overlap, and that's if you roll a 3. Okay? So now we understand disjoint events. They have no common outcomes. Overlapping events do have one or more common outcomes. And then I want to talk about this last one for just a second. Complementary events. Complementary events, they're disjoint. They have no common outcomes, but one of them has to happen. For instance, if I said roll an odd is one event and roll an even is the other. Do they have any common outcomes? No. They're either odd or even when you roll it. But one of them has to happen. When you do roll it, you're going to get an odd or an even. So we would say that they're complementary. Okay? All right. Now, I'm going to stop this right here, and then I'll do an introduction part 2 that deals with the formulas. All right?